Good afternoon. I think, first of all, apart from myself and Chris and Carolina, any other architects or building professionals in the room? We've contained the problem. That's good. It's an important point because I think what I've taken from today and in general from the talks is I think there's a little bit of a misrepresentation and misunderstanding of how much the senses already come into play. And I think Chris touches on it really well on the legislative. But we deal with the senses every day. And I suppose there's two key concepts that we need to understand. One of the key themes in the conference was a city should not be designed to be seen, it should be designed to be experienced. Actually, probably in my context, first of all, a city is a place where you bring activity, therefore we need space, it has commercial reality. That experience is actually an outcome of development. And whether you can genuinely design for that experience, I think, actually Rebecca's already touched on, is more accidental, it's a consequence sometimes. But we do think of the senses a lot, and I would say we think of the senses in two ways. We manage the senses, and we design experiences. When I say we manage the senses, I think it's rather unconscious issue for most of you, but and this room's an example, but I mean, we work in a highly regulated environment. Your experience of every space, especially when you're within a building, but even in a larger scale, as Chris said, is we manipulate your experience consistently. We decide the lux levels on that lighting because we think they are the most appropriate for your concentration. We manipulate the fabric of the wall to make sure that the temperature is right. Some mechanical engineer has not done a great job with the ventilation in this room because I find it really stuffy, and so on and so forth. And these are very unconscious things, and I think, for example, the smell talk really is about raising your awareness of something that we're doing all the time. I think where it's a little bit more complicated is where we have to design a multisensorial environment, that experience. What will a space feel for? I think it was Sasha was commenting on coming through the end of the museum, the Holocaust Museum, and what that felt like. And that is a very deliberate thing. So we can be a little bit more conscious about how we manage these senses. But why design a multisensorial experience? Why design experiences is actually a really tricky question. And the thing you probably don't realize is that, to a certain extent, I have no control over it. Because it's not my building, it's my client's building. The experiences that you are going to be exposed to or subjected to, depending on what kind of client we're talking about, are set out by the client. And the client has a very clear idea of what is valuable to them when working in a commercial environment. And by the way, the client can be public or private. It has to be about value. And I brought an example for you just because I thought something a little bit visual might help. But I do a lot of work in retail environment. And we're doing a project in Aberdeen. This is the Bonaccord Centre in Aberdeen. Apologies, I didn't realise I wasn't talking in the microphone properly. Bonaccord Centre in Aberdeen has been built for 30 years, and like all shopping centres, it's undergone transformations. We started working on this project in 2013, pre-Scottish referendum, pre-Brexit, pre the crash of the oil prices, and the brief and the value of the centre was very different. We were asked to look at this specific space, this what I describe a stalled space almost. It's a little service yard at the back here, which wasn't even built in that image there. And the client took a very commercial approach. The value in this project was all about money, space, and what we could get out of it. And if you what I would give you from this image is, if you look at it, it's very much number driven. Agents understand value in the amount of space they can let. Landlords understand value in the amount of space they can let. In fact, pretty much every conversation pre-2014 was always about money. And that's fine, and that's the brief. So in this aspect, the sensorial experience is more something that we as architects maybe bring as a gut feeling, but as David pointed out to us, we are quite prone to making sensorial mistakes. This was the image we had in 2013. It's that kind of polished, really nice effect. even in grey silhouettes, these people all look fantastic, and I can assure you I've been in Aberdeen a lot, and they don't exist. And you're trying to sell an image that doesn't exist, but unfortunately it's really difficult to convince the client otherwise. The reason I wanted to show you this example is that yesterday I was presented on this very same project again, because we still haven't been able to build it because of mainly the political shifts and economic problems. And what's really interesting is that the multisensorial is becoming absolutely prevalent in the retail environment. 3 years ago, it was all about commercial. Now landlords are fighting over space, money, tenants, client, your money. And what the big move is at the moment is that clients, you, no longer want stuff. You want experiences. That is the jargon has completely changed in the retail environment at the moment. And so yesterday I was in a presentation, we're looking at that back space, we're talking about potentially bringing a market space in, and it was completely a conversation about feeling. It was a conversation about an environment. It was an idea. Ignore the design solution itself, whether it's too gentrified or not gentrified. It's actually an irrelevant issue. We had a conversation with a client for 2 hours about the kind of feeling, the kind of space they wanted to generate. That conversation was impossible 2 years ago. And we started using things that, you know, architects get away with saying, but not everyday, hard-working Clydeside architects like ourselves. We started talking about the theatre of the space, the ability of doing something that doesn't have to be expensive, but it can be really rich in meaning. It's about mural art. This is Glasgow, but mural art can be expressed in so many different ways and has so many cultural connotations. About the tactile quality, about the feeling, biophilic design, the importance of connection to the outside. I don't know why they're making me design a space outside in Aberdeen. It's horrendous and cold and wet most of the time. It's unfair. Aberdeen's a lovely city and they get actually more sunshine than Glasgow. And the opportunity of what you were doing. I was really keen to show you this because there is a shift in what the multisensorial means. But there's been a shift because the shift doesn't really matter anymore. The shift has value. Earlier on we were speaking about prisons. Actually, prisons have a very big multisensorial challenge at the moment. We can't afford to house our inmates anymore. We have massive reoffending issues. So the government has identified a massive value issue. It's costing them a fortune to maintain the prisoners. Therefore, while 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we were building prisons in a punitive way, and in a very different political, philosophical position, now we're talking about, can we design environments that aid rehabilitation? Can we design environments that support us in that process? And we're seeing the sensorial change in everything. Schools are probably, we're seeing, especially in special needs schools, we're seeing some of the best work, I think, especially in relationship to working with researchers. Hospitals, I'm afraid I've not been as good at it as they should have been, considering how long they've been around and how much data they can collect. Churches are phenomenal. You know, they used to be actually about the power of God, and now they're actually much more about the individuals and the experience and how they feel. So the multisensorial in private practice and development can exist, but it has to have value. We get that, and I completely agree with Chris, and a little bit with Rebecca, God forbid, that there are certain experiences that I don't think are worth analysing too much. They are accidental. They are a result of our environment. That's why they're rich. That's why they're so personal. I don't think it's important whether you enjoy that experience or not. It's an experience. There are multisensorial experiences where design can have an impact potentially. We're not the solution. We're part of the solution. That are massive negative connotations. In the first seminar in London, a really interesting talk about the correlation between mental health issues, and they're more prevalent in built-up environments than they are in rural environments. How do we deal with that? Researching that, putting value on that, communicating that to policymakers and maybe directly to consultants is great, or key stakeholders. And to me, that's the challenge for all of us. Put value in the multisensorial experiences. Those are the ones that are worth really talking about and trying to shape. The other ones we should just enjoy and treasure, and hopefully when we redesign this room, we'll have put air conditioning in. Thanks.